That's what we're talking about, bills this morning. In today's Money Watch, the government is set to release new inflation data this morning. And I see you dancing over there, Gayle. And it could have an impact on what you pay for housing and credit card debt. The consumer price index is down from a year ago, but it was still up 3.5% in March. The new numbers for April are expected to show a slight decrease. CBS business analyst Jill Schlesinger is here to break it all down. So let's jump right into it. Rising rents, high home prices, that plays a major part of all of this. Is there relief on the horizon?
You know, I think what's fascinating is that we've seen prices come down for goods, maybe not so much for services, but it's that housing component that's been really nagging, keeping the inflation rate high. There's a really weird reason behind this, and that is that the government measures this thing called shelter, which is just housing costs, in two different ways. They want to account for the fact that people are renting, but then also people own. For the people who own, it's very difficult because a lot of people have very low mortgage rates. So the government basically says, hey, how much would it cost you or would you receive in rent if you actually had to go rent your house in the marketplace? This is a guesstimate, gang.
Yeah.
Right.
And so what happens is the housing part of the inflation data looks a lot higher than it may feel on the ground.
Okay.
It almost doesn't matter because, honestly, rents are up by about 20% from before the pandemic, and housing costs are up more like 40 or 50% since the pandemic.
Is it better to be a buyer or a seller right now?
Well, I think that right now you'd have to be a seller because there's still not a lot of inventory. And what we have seen is that people don't want to sell their homes. Why? Because they've got those low mortgage rates.
Right. Jill, let's talk about household debt. I was reading this morning that something like 1 out of 5 credit card holders, probably 1 out of 5 people watching right now, have maxed out their credit cards. That's a bad place to be.
Yes, we got new data out from the New York Federal Reserve Bank, and it shows that the overall level of debt continues to rise, right? And the thing that's weird is that credit card debt specifically has neared this all-time high level. We had an all-time high at the end of the fourth quarter. First quarter went down a tiny bit, but you know why credit card debt goes down in the first quarter? Because we all go on financial diets on January 2nd.
Right.
So we stop using our credit
from the holidays.
Right. We stop using
Resolutions.
we stop using our credit card, then we use our tax refunds to pay down debt. But you're right. We are concerned that there are people who are running into delinquencies. So when you say, well, people are maxed out, that's like the next step before you're late on a payment. And look, gang, it stinks to be late on a payment.
Right.
And I want to remind everybody that you've got some options. The most important thing you can do is call your credit card company and ask for some relief. This is
that's a good tip.
incredibly important. You want to make sure that if you're going to do a cash balance transfer, which is something available if you have decent credit, that you can pay that amount off within the period of time. So you get 0% for a year. You better pay that down in a year or else your interest rate's going to go up. And don't forget to automate your credit card bills as much as possible. Send them $5 or $10 a month if that's all you can do.
Yeah.
Because every time you make a payment, it does help and you avoid.
Keeps them at bay.
Yeah, and
right?
you want to really avoid those late fees, those penalties.
Those
do
are the
start
worst.
To
It ends up being
pile
very
up.
expensive to be poor, right?
It's-
If you don't
it's-
have the cash,
It's
they
not
keep charging you.
And to be clear, it's not just poor because it is a lot of young people and middle class people who have had to turn to credit card debt to pay for these higher prices.
Right.
And you
Right.
run into one problem, you run into one unexpected bill, childcare costs, healthcare costs, car insurance, all these things do matter.
Boom.
All right, Joe, we appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Sure.